I'm going to keep my intros short, but I'm really, really excited to announce that we are going to have a wonderful group of 3 people here speaking today. Chimaway Lopez, you met his father before, who gave a really wonderful talk, and he is a Chumash brother, senior in high school, an organizer with Ethnic Studies Now Coalition. We then have Alas, who gave a really wonderful performance, and she is a local performer, can introduce herself a bit more. And David Cobb, who, if you were here yesterday, you would have met him, was a 2004 Green Party candidate for president and co-founder of Move to Amend. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you, Emily. So this is a panel on intersectionality, but the 3 of us want to make sure that we have a lot of room for a genuine conversation. So what I've been asked to do is to overlay it. And I think it's important that we really underscore that the United States of America is fundamentally racist, fundamentally sexist, fundamentally class oppressive, and these huge transnational corporations are going to destroy the planet that we depend upon for life itself if we don't get them under control. I mean, that's reality, right? So that's heavy, that's big, and how do we actually do the work to democratize our existence, where we work, live, and play every day with that knowledge and with that level of seriousness? So in a very short period of time, what I'm going to try to do is just show you how Move to Amend tries to do that work. And I want to be very clear. Move to Amend was 12 people in a living room in 2010. Today, we're 404,000 people and growing every day. We have helped 16 states pass resolutions. I mean, I could go through the list of all the ways that we're literally a movement organization, and we have committed internally that we are going to be an explicitly feminist, explicitly anti-racist organization. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And frankly, we have lost some people because of that. It's interesting, we have not lost no young people because of that. We've lost no people of color because of that. We have lost older white men because of that, quite honestly. And that's okay. And it's not that they are not still part of the movement, but they're not part of Move to Amend anymore. And I say that not because I want you to pat me on the head. I say that because what we know and believe is the approach that we're taking is not only ethically and morally the right thing to do, it is ethically and morally the right thing to do. Deeper than that, it has to be done or we cannot win. We cannot win a constitutional amendment to democratize the economy of the United States of America if we don't commit ourselves to building a multiracial, intergenerational movement. So we should just get over any other debates about it. That has to happen. And what does that look like on the ground for a group that's doing it? Well, so what does this look like? Here is a 7-session movement education program that we require our local leaders to go through. I want you to think about that for a moment. A political education program that is not designed to make our people better movement trivial pursuit players, but a movement system that is not tested at the end of it, but instead forces us, both as a national leadership and our local leaders, to grapple with the reality of white supremacy and patriarchy and all of the other isms that are realities, to help to create an awareness so that when we make mistakes, not if we make mistakes, when we make mistakes that are racist or sexist or otherwise insulting to people that are unintentional, we have got the skill set to hang in together, to actually build and work together, right? Because I was like, I make mistakes all the time. I am mortified when I go back and I think back my own self 20 years ago, the things that I said and did as a good person, right? But I still look back at my process, and so I know I'm going to keep making them. But my commitment and our commitment at Move to Amend is that we learn, that we hang in it together. And this session is designed, and again, giving all the space, there's so much that could be said here, but it's a 7 sessions, right? That starts with an introduction. Session 2, developing the frameworks for solidarity organizing. 3, where we go deep on both the women's suffrage movement and the abolitionist movement. Then the civil rights movement, the labor movement. We talk about co-optation. We talk about organizing for liberation, and it concludes with a written strategic plan for solidarity organizing where local vulnerable groups that are mostly white, mostly middle or upper class, we hope now have the tools and the skill sets to be able to understand and recognize that a fight against the prison industrial complex is actually a fight to help abolish the idea of corporate constitutional rights, because it's a fight for liberation, right? And honestly, I could do the same thing with immigration policy. My friend Matt Nelson, who made some of those earlier comments and the work that they're doing, we're really excited about the detention center work that we're starting to do to actually show that the corporatization of immigration policy is specifically because we have incentivized those bed quotas, right? Matt didn't go into detail, but I feel like I am very well versed, right? And my analysis is sharp, but I feel like the great political theorist Lily Tomlin, or some of you know that name, right? She said, no matter how cynical I get, it's hard to keep up. And that's what happened whenever I started to actually look at immigration policy, and you can see an explicit example of how in 10 years the complete policy has changed and the role of the corporation involved in it. And I say that I could do it with almost every other issue, and at the end of the day, I'm going to come back to this. I don't do this work around intersectionality because, to be a good person. I'm already a good person. I mean, you may not know me, but I am a good human being. I do my best. I do this work around intersectionality because it has to be done. And I'll make mistakes, just like you'll make mistakes. We'll all make mistakes. But, a good friend of mine, I have to give Matt credit now because I'm going to actually quote him. I usually take credit for this as if I thought of it myself. But Matt said something that still stays with me today, and that is this: we are all better than the mistakes we make. And I go back to that a lot because I continue to make all these mistakes, but I know I'm better than those mistakes. And Move to Men can be better because of those than the mistakes that we make. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Elash and Chimaway. And hear about, so I've given you a very concrete thing, but now I'm interested in hearing what y'all think.
Thank you. Haku kich ich antik. My name is Chimaway Lopez. I'm a member of the Chumash community, and I'd like to welcome you all to our homeland here. And I'm honored to be in the presence of so many inspiring people today. I also want to thank the organizers for putting this together and the invitation to have me speak here today. I want to start by talking a little bit about my involvement in organizing as far as coalitions here in Santa Barbara. I've been working with Ethnic Studies Now, Santa Barbara Unified School District, which is a coalition of community members, educators, students from all different communities within Santa Barbara and the surrounding area. And our goal is to, as far as this coalition is concerned, is to implement an ethnic studies requirement for graduation in the high schools. What this requirement is going to do is give youth an access and actually require them to take classes that think critically and give them a framework and a knowledge to question and analyze these structures of oppression within society that we're dealing with today. I believe that education, and especially implementing these ethnic studies within the framework of our education, is one aspect where incremental change can significantly affect the foundation in which the entire social system is based upon. And this is because, like I said, these classes, if implemented efficiently and effectively, can give students the power and the knowledge to question these systems of oppression. It can turn the apathetic student bystander to a soldier for justice, whatever their individual capacity is in the movement. So my goal and my hope for ethnic studies is to create a shift of consciousness within the student population. And if we take this shift of consciousness to its fullest potential, we can start not only dismantling the system of oppressions that we're working on today, and we're working under today, but start also thinking seriously about what we need to do to make this world a better place. So the question of coalition building is a very important and essential question to understand and tackle if we're going to move forward with changing society in a fundamental way. And I think that my experiences in working with this coalition and other coalitions I've been involved in has given me some hands-on experience that I'd like to share. So I'll try to describe these, especially with my involvement in ethnic studies. Why has ethnic studies been such a rallying point within the community here in Santa Barbara? I think, and this is my analysis, is that ethnic studies is not a single issue topic. It can transcend individual concerns and reach different points of view because it questions fundamentally the paradigm that is perpetuated by the educational system and the other institutions within society. So I think that if we're going to effectively create coalitions that unite people for social change in a positive way, we have to look beyond the individual level of our own specific issues that we feel passionate about and try and find the root cause that we're all trying to change. And that way, by looking beyond these single issue campaigns, so to speak, we can find and unite people that come from different communities, have different points of view. So with this aspect of looking beyond your own self-interest comes the ideas of respect and understanding, which I think are fundamental cornerstones to working with people in a coalition. You must respect other people's identities, other people's thought processes, and their feelings and their actions when you're working with other people. And this goes both ways. You must look at yourself as well and accept the responsibility of working with other people in a coalition. If you cannot understand and accept this responsibility when you're working with other people, you're gonna hold everyone back, including yourself. And it's very important when you're working with other people to understand this. The other aspect is to, again, critically reflect upon yourself and understand what your identity, what your actions, and what your cognitive process is and how it affects other people that you're working with. If you're not able to put your ego aside, if you're not able to critically look at yourself and understand how you affect other people, then you need some work to do. You have some work to do looking at yourself before you're ready to work in a coalition setting. And I think that's something really important that we have to understand when you're working within a coalition. Now I want to touch on one other point, and then I'll end with this, is that here in the United States and all throughout the Americas and the world, we're organizing on territory of the First Nations. So when you're organizing coalition, whatever you're organizing, you cannot fundamentally affect change if you're ignoring these First Nation people, ignoring the history of the land and the history of these oppressive systems that you're working under. So if you're going to effectively organize a coalition, the fundamental thing you must do is recognize the Native people and the area you're organizing under. If you do not do this, then how can you fundamentally, how can you effectively organize a group of people to create positive change within the area you're working under? Now this is just the first basic step. If you, it's astounding to me how many organizers who are smart, intelligent, good people totally miss this aspect of coalition building or even organizing in a positive way. Now, I think we need to take this a step further, and when you're organizing a coalition, you must actually include these Native nations that you're working with in your decision process, in how you're organizing. Native nations have lived in their areas, unless they've been relocated by genocidal policy, have lived in their areas for thousands of years. Their experiential knowledge can give us insight to the area we're living under in ways that no other people can. So when you dismiss Native nations in such a way that you ignore a very, very important and very essential part of what you're doing when you're trying to create positive change within this world that we live under. So I think that's very important and essential to understand when you're building a coalition. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Alas. I got to sing a song for y'all earlier, and this is not going to be as melodic, but you should still listen. So kind of what I want to focus on right now is the most fundamental ideal that I tried to implement in my music and in my conversations and in my work is the idea that decolonization is not a metaphor. And that is one of the titles, that's a title of one of the articles that's in, oh, where'd it go? It's in the curriculum that David shared, and I think it's something that's glossed over too frequently. So what happens a lot of times is that because Native people were brought to the brink of extinction, where there's only 1% of the 1 to 2% of the population throughout the country, Native folks end up being forgotten. And like Chimaway was saying, especially in these settings, people can understand the occupation of Palestine and that being illegally occupied, and forgetting that that's what's happening here. This area here was one of the most fruitful Chumash villages, and you're standing on this colonizing, occupying force of the university, muffling the spirits of the ancestors that are buried here. And it's very, very real. It's not, not an abstract concept. And the people who are not actively challenging those systems are colluding with that. So it's very possible for colonized people to become colonizers. And the issue that I've encountered a lot of times is that people try to separate themselves from that kind of benefit. And what happens in a lot of POC spaces, and and especially if they're white dominated, is that in the same way that anti-blackness goes unchallenged, anti-indigenous and homophobic, all these different things go unchallenged. But the anti-indigenous ideals kind of stick out to me a lot since I've been taught about them. So what I want to talk about too is when you talk about coalition building and you talk about an end goal, right? If you are actively committed to decolonizing, then that's going to put yourself in a position of answering to the people of this land as the initial and rightful protectors and defenders of this territory. And that's very difficult for people to not be in those positions of power, to dictate, or to kind of yield to other people here. And these things, there are songs to this land, there are ceremonies to this land. In every different territory, they are very different things. And they don't exist because I say they exist. This isn't real because I say it's real and I say that this is what you need to listen to. But look at the way that things are going now, because so much ceremony has been ignored. So much of our responsibility to these lands have been ignored. And so for me, when we talk about concrete examples of working in a collaborative effort with anti-colonial organizations and anti-colonial tactics. So if you look back on traditional policing and the way that it is still implemented in many countries around the world, you talk about going in the Amazon where oil executives are kidnapped for trespassing and for trying to violate the land that is your relative, right? That's the same way that you might react if someone was violating someone in your family and you were there to do something about it. They physically stopped that by taking people hostage, by committing arsons on their equipment. And that's something that happens as well with actual abuse, with child abuse, with sexual assault. People are castrated. People are not allowed to get away with things like that. That is traditional policing. So when there's a certain parameters of what is acceptable to engage in as solidarity work or coalition building. And so that's kind of the parameter that I want to expand and help people to expand is there are nations here and far that engage in those kinds of tactics. So, you know, we talk about how the legal system in place is here to protect the colonizing forces. So much of what is effective in stopping the destruction of our land, our air, and our water is illegal, right? It's illegal for you to blockade a road. It's illegal for you to set fire to, you know, a certain an excavator. It's illegal for you to engage in that sort of way. People get a lot of time for this. Even a couple years ago when they started developing out here, the wetlands just right outside of the university, somebody, you know, set fire to the tractors out there, causing over $1 million in damages, and that was effective in stopping them. But if they had been caught, they would have received a lot of time. I'm grateful that they weren't caught. I'm grateful that they did what they did, and that's something that's not really involved or talked about in a lot of these spaces. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna talk about it. So I'm gonna move on a little bit to kind of the idea of tokenism, right? Because as people of color, we step into these organizations that may have oftentimes more access to funds, more access to resources, and so we end up being brought out. We end up participating in a certain capacity. And it's just to acknowledge that anti-racist work takes a lifetime. It is not something, you know, that was covered already, is that it's not something that you can take, you know, this is a really solid foundation for an organization. When I saw it, I was impressed because that's not a requirement for so many groups to even just have that basic conversation. But then once you actually get into it and people are having these conversations, a lot of times folks will deem themselves experts or, you know, want the ally badge and want to just kind of feel infallible in a sense to where they end up using the people around them to kind of negate the inherent racism that is going to be there forever, and it takes a lifetime of work. So, you know, we encounter these microaggressions daily, all the time, as people of color, as Native people, as Indigenous people, as migrant people. And a lot of times it can be very damaging. I think so, even more so than, like, I go out to the supermarket and I expect a microaggression. I expect that. But when you are in organizing circles and you're working with people that supposedly have the same end goal and it happens, then that can be a lot more damaging. And I think a lot of times we take it upon ourselves to be the teachers and to change the people around us, and what happens is we end up investing in whiteness so much and changing the whiteness and changing the way people's white people think and white people see us and the way that those things work. And something that I found that has helped me a lot is to not be invested in whiteness and to work with, you know, with my people, with folks that come from the same background, that may have grown up undocumented, may have grown up poor, and are more able to, so I just want to specify that it's okay to take a break sometimes from these institutions, because universities break people, nonprofit institutions break people. It can be a very soul-sucking engagement, and a lot of times it seems to be like the only path for us to go in. So in order for us to really build ourselves and build our own movements, you know, sometimes we have to step away from these institutions. And the very last thing I want to say is just the way that I was taught about approaching this work is that we have rights and not responsibilities. It's not like like we have a responsibility to take care of the air we breathe, to guard the land that we live on, whether you're from here or not. If you're not doing that duty, then you're not being true to the function of a human on this earth. You're not honoring the ancestors before you, and you're not giving any consideration to the children that are to come in the future and what we are handing them. Because right now what we're handing them is just a time bomb. And so to kind of shift the idea of begging for rights and for begging for you know, a colonial structure to give us something, when it's like we have a job to do, and we can't allow things to step in the way of that, because we have to stay true to our true purpose. So thank you.